All right, Vice Chair Thomas, it's all yours. We're on YouTube and the webinar is on.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the joint Camarillo, Oxnard, Ventura County Airport Authority. We will now have a call to order, and if we could have the Pledge of Allegiance now. All those with me, I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, nice photo. That's an air show photo, obviously. Very good,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas.
And Miss Anna, could we have the pledge of, or the roll call, please?
Yes, sir. For Camarillo Airport Authorities, Supervisor Long,
Yes.
Supervisor Ramirez.
Yes.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Molche. Councilmember Santangelo
I'm here.
and Vice Chair Thomas.
Here.
Okay, and alternate public member Michael Hodson.
Present.
Okay, Camarillo has a quorum. Shall I do the roll call for Oxnard Airport Authority?
Yes, would you please do the roll call for Oxnard?
Will do. Supervisor Long,
Yes.
Vice Chair Ramirez,
Yes.
Councilmember Perrello.
Yes, and may I make a request? We closed the meeting in honor of the individual who was killed in the airplane accident in San Diego. A UPS driver going about his route, 31 years on the job, hoping to retire, and just a memory of how serious the airport, the air traffic, and how fragile it can be. Thank you. Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Lopez.
Here.
Chair Calhoun,
You're muted, Walter.
Here.
thank you. And alternate public member Eugene Fussell.
Here.
Oxnard has a quorum.
Very good. Agenda review. Is there any changes to the agenda? Hearing none. Could I have the approval for the Camarillo minutes from September 9th, please?
I have a question. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I'm sorry.
In every other meeting I've been in recently, it's been required to, maybe Mr. Temple knows, it's been required to read all of the instructions on how the public can communicate. Is that not required here? You know, lengthy reading of all the rules, just so we're okay with that. I'm great if you don't have to read it. That's wonderful.
I'm not aware of that, but we certainly can do that if we need to.
If we
In
need
fact,
to, but if we don't,
why don't we do this? So John, if you wouldn't mind, would you go ahead and on the first page of the agenda are the rules and regulations. I have no problem at all reviewing those. I think that the key part, I'll tell you what, John, what I will do is I think that everybody who is watching this is going to be on the YouTube channel, which is on the agenda. And then just a reminder that if you do have a request for an email public comment option, I believe it's the airportinfo@ventura.org. Is that the correct email, John?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so if anyone has a question, that email will be monitored. That's airportinfo@ventura.org. Yes, Mr. Perrello.
Yeah, I just thank you very much, Mr. Thomas. I just want to share the City of Oxnard and the Ventura Regional Sanitation District, they have to read that information. And the City of Oxnard apparently is doing a little more. They're has public comment. If no one has public comment, now they have where they're waiting 3 minutes after the last person with public comment in case someone calls in that 3-minute period. I asked at the VRSD board, they said they hadn't heard of it, but I just wanted to give you a wrinkle. But thank you for doing that, Mr. Thomas.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, then I would like to.
A motion to approve the Camarillo minutes. This is Supervisor Long.
Thank you. Do I have a second for Camarillo?
I'll second. Susan Santangelo.
Thank you. Is
I have
there
a question.
Mr. Perello?
Yes, I think there needs to be a little clarification in the minutes. Underneath authority comments, it says Councilmember Susan Santangelo stated she received positive comments about the show on page 3A5. 1, 2, third paragraph down under authority comments. The very next paragraph, Councilman Perello supported Councilmember Santangelo bringing forth the complaints she received about the air show so that the airport authority is aware. I think that comments under Santangelo need to be improved because at least the way I understood it coming from the councilwoman, the general counsel lady, they weren't all positive comments. And I do appreciate, and I state in the support, all the people that put on the air show and all the efforts that were made. And then in the same breath, underneath that second paragraph, underneath the 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph, I'd like to share with the new airport authority director. Interim, there was questions and answers about questions on my part. What is the requirements for the new position? Are we going to, can you tell us, can you share us with us? In the last sentence, Mr. Perello requested that the airport staff share the recruitment package with all authority members, including alternates. I can only speak for myself. I never received that. So I just hope that with a new person coming on board, that if there's an error, we don't make the same one. Those are my only comments. Thank you.
Okay, for Councilman Santangelo, I understand that you had gotten some negative complaints and you also had a lot of positive comments. And so that's how I read the minutes. Was that an accurate depiction?
Yeah, I think I shared that I had gotten some complaints and concerns about the noise, but that I had also gotten many positive comments and feedback. So I kind of agree that the minutes could probably say that better. It doesn't explicitly say that I mentioned the complaints, except when it mentioned Mr. Perello's comments about my comments.
So Councilmember Santangelo, do you want to just have it amended to include I received good comments and a couple of complaints?
Sure, I think complaints about the noise probably more.
About the noise. Okay, period. I would motion to approve that with that amendment.
Second that.
We're on Camarillo, Mr. Perello.
Yes,
Okay, beg your pardon.
I'll second it with that change.
thank you.
Very good, thank you. Shall we go ahead and just do a tally vote, a roll call vote, please, Anna?
Yes, and let the record reflect that Vice Mayor Molche has joined the meeting, so I will include him in the roll call vote. Supervisor Long,
Yes,
Supervisor Ramirez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Molche,
Yes.
Councilmember Santangelo,
Yes,
and Chair Thomas.
Yes,
That motion passes unanimously.
and for Oxnard, Walter, do you want to run the section on
Yeah, I'd like to call for a motion on that at this point.
So moved.
second by Supervisor Long.
Thank you, Supervisor Long. Any additional discussion from any of the
Does
members?
it, yes, does it have the same correction? Because I only see one set of minutes for the Camarillo Airport Authority. I don't see That's why I inadvertently voted on the last one.
I would make my motion as including that amendment for the minutes for Camarillo and Oxnard Airport Authority. Thank you.
And I accept that.
Thank you, Supervisor Long. I agree with that. So we can, to continue, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Do we need roll call?
Yes.
Great if we don't, but we do. Okay, darn. All right.
Yeah, we've got to have the roll call, right?
Right.
Okay, for roll call, Supervisor Long,
Yes.
Vice Chair Ramirez,
Yes.
Councilmember Perallo,
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Chair Calhoun.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much. Will now be item 5, which is the public comment period. John, do we have any public members who have got or provided public comment?
We have one that just popped up, Walter. I'm not going to butcher his last name, but I will promote him to a panelist so we can do his 3 minutes.
Thank you.
And Walter, find you. There you are. If you unmute yourself and you can do your 3, you can speak for 3 minutes.
Well, I did not have requests in for that. That's why I'm muting.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now. I'm Walter Hagedom. I'm the chair of the Oxnard Shores Neighborhood Council. Over the last 9 months, we have made presentations to this board calling attention to the problem created by flight schools operating from Oxnard Airport. We requested that actions be taken to minimize the risks that flights pose to our neighborhood. We have not detected any change in policy concerning these flights. There is a solution to this problem. Currently, flights school aircraft leave the airport on the runway heading of 250 degrees and then turn left, flying over heavily populated areas south of the airport. If they turn to 270 degrees, a 20-degree turn to the right and traveled over the less populated areas north of the airport, the noise and safety issues could be mitigated. We have asked for 7 months for a viable answer to this and how this could not happen. They tell us that an FAA study would be required. This makes no sense given what has happened in the past. In the late 1990s, during the production of the EIR for the North Shores residential development located at Harbor Boulevard and 5th Street, the public commented on the risk involved with having a residential development at the end of the Oxnard Airport runway. One such letter received the following answer. The commentor makes a number of valid points, but these will largely be remedied by the Part 150 study when it is completed, because the parties developing the various noise abatement and land use compatibility measures it will contain will also have implementation responsibilities for those measures. We believe that the 270-degree measure, a 20-degree turn to the right after takeoff, advocated by the City of Oxnard, and which would be implemented jointly by the airport, the FAA ATC tower, and the users themselves, would result in a substantially better quality of life for all those residing west of the airport, unquote. This was 1998. First, there was already an FAA study underway. In fact, according to the Federal Registry, the FAA accepted noise exposure maps for Oxnard Airport. Where are these maps and the Part 150 study that was promised in the EIR? Second, 23 years ago, the residents were promised by the City of Oxnard that a right traffic pattern out of the airport would be implemented. So why has it not happened? We have had discussions with the CAU flight school operating out of Oxnard Airport. It is the only school paying for facilities at the airport. They have been very supportive of a fly-friendly approach that would include a right traffic pattern. I hope we can get a solution that will work for all parties, but until that time, I hope you will consider the following resolution: that flight schools not operating out of Oxnard Airport and not paying any fees to the airport should be restricted from using the airport for touch and go operations until the issue can be resolved. This should be done now before the airport is reopened. The time for stonewalling is over. The public deserves answers and actions. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. John, do we have any additional public comment?
There is no other public comment at this time.
Well, we'll give it, why don't we give it a full minute? And while we're doing that, I wanted to pass on to Councilman Perrella that the airport sent me a copy of the link to the airport's website, which included the description and the pieces of requirements for the new airport director. I think that I saw it go out to all of the members of the authority, but I may be wrong.
Thank you. Thank you.
I should have asked you for a countdown clock, John, but I'll flip it over here in just a second. Okay, is there any additional public comment requests?
None at this time.
Very well, unless there's an objection, I'd like to move on to item number 6, which is new business. Hearing none, Mr. Naffy, if you want to proceed with item 6.
Very good. We'll click forward there. All right, new business for the Camarillo Airport Authority. This is regarding the approval of and authorization for the Director of Airports or his designee to sign the Second Amendment to the lease with RKR Incorporated to defer rent payments for 12 months and to provide for use of county's water credits. And staff requests that your commission authority in this case recommend that the Board of Supervisors or board approve and authorize the Director of Airports or his designee to sign the Second Amendment to the lease with RKR Incorporated at the Camarillo Airport to defer rent payments for 12 months and to allow RKR to use county-owned water credits to obtain a water will serve letter from the City of Camarillo. And we can go to the next slide, I think. Nope, my bad, back it up. All right, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and the Chair is on as well. The Cloud9 is entered into a lease with the Department of Airports with the county, and they intend to build a number of hangars and office space, and they are facing headwinds in the permitting process with the city. So the county has the authority to issue building permits, but there are 3 points of contact with the city. And they are these: the water will serve letter, the sewer will serve letter, and an encroachment permit that allows them to obtain direct access to Las Posas. And the county only needs the water and the sewer in order to let them continue with their building project. But we have an agreement with the city defining a complete package that contains all 3 of those. And the city has indicated that they need all 3 of them to be solved or all the conditions met all at the same time before any one of them can be released. So what we can do as the county is to help RKR solve the water will serve issue, and what that really means is that the somewhere else in the system a developer needs to identify an offsetting project that has a 0 net effect on the water volume being used. So oftentimes they'll go find a project in the community, make some water saving types of improvements, such as changing fixtures or taking landscaping out of service or things like that, such that whatever use that they are asking for has a zero net effect. And RKR had identified a project earlier in the year, and for reasons that the city provided to RKR, that opportunity was withdrawn, and they were in need of locating a project that they could complete within a short period of time so that they could keep moving. And then we've all discovered together that that project, that offsetting project, needed to be complete, implemented, and to see that there indeed was an offsetting zero net effect before the water will serve could be released. So the county has the ability to use credits that we have and provide those to RKR. And in exchange for doing that, we're proposing that those credits be returned to the county within 24 months at a ratio of 1.5 to 1. And we do that not to penalize them, but to simply say that if this is going to turn into something that other developers take advantage of in the future, this allows us to have a sustainable balance of water credits for that purpose. So that's the water credit portion of it. The deferment, this goes back to the headwinds. This allows RKR to continue to meet the city's requirements for these permits, and gives them a little bit of financial breathing room to do this. The deal as it's structured is simply a deferment where the total amount of money collected under the lease during the lease's entire term is not changed. The term itself is not changed. This simply gives them a 12-month ability to suspend their payments and then pay us back amortized over the following 36 months. So zero net effect on that as well. So those are the two items that go into amendment number 2 to RKR's lease. And I'm happy to take your questions.
Supervisor Long.
Thank you, Dave. I really appreciate bringing this to the board. I'm not sure if it matters, but how long have we been working on this, that they've been trying to get these water credits from either the city or the county?
Well, it's been a moving target. I guess I'll say that the latest episode began in July, and there had been a project identified, and RKR had worked with the city staff in good faith to identify what that project would be. They understood that that was going to result in a water will serve letter, but I think there was a developing understanding that evolved over that period of time, and so that's our current status. Prior to that, I think there had been some understanding, maybe misunderstanding about the source of the credits that were going to be used. RKR had an understanding, and I think staff here was looking to work with RKR on this issue leading into the spring and summer. So it's been a moving target, but I think now we have a good understanding that if we offer this through an amendment, that this can solve one of the issues that RKR has, and hopefully keep moving this forward.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate that. The reason why I ask is because private companies coming in to do something sometimes doesn't understand the complexity of working with a county and a city. And so I just appreciate Dave having this brought to our attention so that we can move this project forward and giving them the flexibility that they need to be able to move forward. So I appreciate that. I don't know if there's other questions, but
Yes, sir.
go ahead.
Is. Mr. Hodson?
Thank you. I guess my question is, it seemed that the project was moving ahead at, I won't say normal speed, but at some speed, and then these issues between RKR and the city and the county trying to resolve these things have all come up rather late in the game. There's been considerable work done at the site and grading and money spent. And I just understand how everything kind of fell apart. I would have thought that before there was much grading done and much work done on the site, that these problems would have all been addressed and solved, and the permits would have been issued before we got down the road this far. I just don't understand that.
Okay, Councilman Mulchay?
Thank you. Dave, how does the county anticipate RKR to generate the necessary credits to pay back the county? Can you shed some light on that process?
Councilmember Mulchay, my understanding is that they would continue to do that in the customary fashion of identifying a project. This is simply bridging a time gap because of the fact that they're going to need to complete the project and demonstrate the savings into the system. This is waiting for them to actually do that and make those improvements and see those benefits materialize. It was felt like that would extend them, that would make that the long pole in the tent, I guess, in effect. And that was an understanding that was arrived at fairly late. And so this is an opportunity for us to be able to support RKR in this category in a way that sustains the process by replenishing our credits rather than doing a cash in lieu type of arrangement. So that was the way we felt we could support RKR in that category.
Did that answer? Are you satisfied with that, Councilman Mulchay?
No, I still don't know exactly how they anticipate generating the necessary credits to pay back the county. So I mean, one way would be to make further investments in either their own infrastructure through their development, or make some sort of contribution to the city or other organizations in reducing their water usage in order to develop credits, I presume, to then pay back the county. Am I correct?
Councilmember Mulchay, they intend to do what other developers do, or what they had intended to do in the first place, was to identify another development that could benefit from having water saving projects done within that development. And that's the customary way those credits are generated. They just don't have time to do that, to see the project completed and see the benefits documented before they need to keep going with obtaining the county's building permit. So this is one way that we thought we could assist.
Okay, thanks.
Supervisor Long, did you have another question?
No, I was just going to motion approve, but I was waiting for the other comments. Thank you.
Yeah, I just have one comment. To me, it seems I've been watching RKR totally shut down since probably the end of July, 1st of August. And it just is hard for me to imagine how you can do business in that way. I mean, they have their steel, their equipment, everything is on site, and it looks like they've gotten caught in between the feds, the county, and the city in a totally no-win situation with apparently very few people willing to help. That's just not a very good statement of how you do things in Camarillo. I just feel badly as a citizen watching it. And I certainly would hope that our city council members and our supervisors can continue to exert leverage on this. Mr. Perello?
Thank you, Chair. I understand this is a Camarillo issue. This is, I have no vote in this, but I would like to share. It seems that there would have been an agreement It just seems good businessmen would have all these things lined up, ducks in a row. And if they didn't, one part of the agreement found a clever way to stop something, to extract something that they want. And I would only bring this and state this because we have two council members from Oxnard, a former council member from Oxnard, two supervisors that are well aware of what happened at Channel Islands Harbor with Fisherman's Wharf, the county and the city. And I just hope this doesn't go to litigation, because that'll be money spent, which will be wrong for the taxpayers. But I do agree with Mr. Thomas, Chair Thomas. It's asinine that you would have a project get this far and somebody forgot to cross the Ts and dot the Is. So there's something else going on here. And I just caution, I believe there should be an attorney here. Can you tell us what's the potential for litigation on this between the city, the county, and the airport authority? That's my question.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Mr. Calhoun, and then I have a question from Mr. Molshay also.
okay, thank you. I don't have a dog in this fight either, but I do want to clarify one thing, which I know is a fact. Before everyone goes off feeling too sorry for RKR development and the fact that they haven't been able to work. The majority of that reason for that inability to work is because they prematurely accepted the manufacturing and the delivery of their steel components, which means you have to have a foundation to put them on, and you have to do the erection to keep them out of the dirt, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know all the details, but I do know that was failure to do so would have meant a delay in receiving the building for up to a year, believe it or not. That's how this economic situation just has affected the steel manufacturers, pre-engineered manufacturer, in the same way it has you and me. So they were forced into a position to accept the steel, but that was a monetary decision they made, and they benefited significantly by keeping their costs down to steel impact pricing, let's say, for lack of a better term, and they'll be able to begin that work again. But it wasn't under a hardship circumstance. They benefited tremendously from that. So it surprises me a little bit that they don't have the capability to go forward with their other commitments at this point. But I don't know any of the details, so I'll just stop right there.
Thanks for the insight. Mr. Molshay.
Now, I should add, it is an unfortunate situation we find ourselves in, because some other people want to add some commentary to this. I can provide some insight and some commentary on my own. Camarillo and RKR had significant discussions in earnest, good faith on both sides, dating back a number of years. There was written correspondence between RKR and the City of Camarillo, where the City of Camarillo acknowledges RKR's project, but also outlines several conditions that have to be met. That letter is dated more than 2 years ago, and further discussion stopped after that. So the idea that maybe a developer didn't quite dot their I's and cross their T's is exactly kind of the situation we find ourselves in, where certain conditions were laid out at the outset and no progress has been made for over the last 2 years on those things. I don't want to start a kerfuffle and an argument or whatnot over it, but there's some, I wouldn't just say this is the way the City of Camarillo does business. So I'd appreciate we not malign the character of Camarillo. There's a lot more depth to this issue. And I think there's some things that fell through the cracks and were not completed in a timely manner that caused us to find ourselves in this situation. So.
Okay, is there any additional, I'm sorry, Supervisor Kelly? Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. And I fully respect Councilmember Molshay and Santangelo for on here that represent the city. My motion is to move forward and to approve this. Nothing else is there. And I appreciate the working together with the county on this project. So just to make sure My motion is to approve and to, staff recommended and to move forward. Thank you.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Mr. Perello, did you have any discussion comments for the, before we vote?
Yes, Chair Thomas, I had asked if there is an attorney present, can we get an answer? What's the chance for litigation between the city and the county and the airport authority on this? I would hate to see your airport authority go through what happened at the county and the city with the Fisherman's Wharf projects.
Mr. Naffy, do we have do we have an attorney present on the call?
Well, we do have Tom Temple, and he can join us to indicate his ability to contribute.
Hi, yeah, the potential for litigation, difficult to say. It's higher than zero, but I think we're moving forward, and we're gonna ultimately come through, hopefully without having to be sued or to sue.
And Supervisor Long, I see your hand up. Do you have another comment or question?
No, I apologize. I don't think anyone's goal is to ever be sued. I appreciate Councilmember Perello's conversation, and just to note that the county and the city will continue to work together in every fashion of everything that's going on in the airport. So I appreciate that. And I'll remember to lower my hand, but my motion still stands. Thanks.
So we do have a motion and a second, and we've had our discussion. Could we go ahead and have a roll call, please, Anna?
Yes, of course. Supervisor Long,
Yes.
Supervisor Ramirez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Molche,
Yes.
Councilmember Santangelo,
Yes.
Chair Thomas.
Yes,
That motion passes unanimously.
thank you.
Vice Chair Thomas, if I could, I'd like to suspend the agenda and move ahead to the director's report for just one item so that Mike Powers can make an announcement.
Very well.
And John, if you could toss up the slide for that guy. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Dave. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You.
Very good. Thank you. Well, good evening, Chair Thomas and authority members. Just want to take a few minutes and talk about our recruitment process and Keith and so forth, and start out by just, as you know, we did an open recruitment, 45 applicants, 8 finalists, and we had a really strong interview panel. And I want to thank members of the Oxnard and Camarillo Airport Authority who participated, Authority Member Hodson and Authority Member Dr. Fussell, as well as from the Aviation Advisory Committee, Dr. Nanette Metz. We also had the Executive Director of the California Airports Council, our county's community liaison and assistant CEO on the panel. And I met with them at the end of the day after they interviewed the 8 candidates, very, very strong candidates, got really helpful feedback and insights. And as I say, a lot of good candidates, but one really stood out for some reason I'd like to just go over. And I, of course, through all of this, I consulted closely with our board, and in particular Supervisors Ramirez and Long, because we know the importance of working with our community and our cities. I interviewed Keith, Mr. Freitas, and then I had him also meet with Dave and the leadership team of the airports. And there was about 7 or 8 of us, and it was just a very positive meeting. And you know, Keith he's very experienced, has a calm, thoughtful style. He was overseeing 2 county airports for several decades, and he did a master plan process there. And we know that's relevant to our situation here. And it took 3 years. There were about 22 community meetings. And at the board hearing, after all of that, there were only 3 speakers, and they were all in support. And I think what that shows is that he just really takes his time. He truly listens and engages with the community, the lessees, the pilots, the cities, and the staff. And during the meeting with the staff, just to let you know that the leadership team, they really appreciated being involved and they asked very good questions. But Keith was also very impressed with them, and that was a nice reflection. I thought they know their business, but I think what really stood out to him was that just how much they cared. They care about the airport, the work they do, and they care about the community that they serve. And they know that the relationship is strained with the community right now, and they don't want that. That doesn't sit well with them, and they really care about improving that relationship. So I think that really that stood out to Keith, and didn't surprise me at all. These are just really quality leaders who are committed to this community. And I just think, with all that chemistry was really good. And I think Keith is just the right leader at the right time for us. And again, to thank Mr. Hodson and Dr. Fussell. It's a long day. It's a lot of time reading and interviewing and so forth, but it really paid off for us. And Keith is eager to get started. His starting day is November 8th. But I can tell you, he's done his homework. Actually, before the interview, he already had a sort of a plan in place as to what he wanted to do. But he's doing his homework now. We've had several conversations with him, so he can be up to speed and hit the ground running on a lot of the major issues that the airport is facing. So we're very excited to have him join. And lastly, I'd just like to take a moment and thank Dave Nafee for his steady leadership during this time of transition in our airports. Any transition time is a challenge, but especially this with a lot of different projects in the works. And Dave's just been, as I say, very steady, very open and positive, and trying to work with everybody. So just appreciate this body's time tonight. Just wanted to give you an update, and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Anyone have any questions for Mike Powers, please?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. If I could, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank Mr. Powers for finding Mr. Freitas for it, and all of the members of the interview panel. And it's a big job, and really appreciate and looking forward to all of the better, I will have to just say better communication with our communities that Mr. Freitas apparently is going to offer, according to what you promised me, Mr. Powers. Thank you so much.
And
that's right. You got it, Supervisor.
And thanks, thanks, Mr. Nafee, for holding up the fort while we did this. Thank you.
And Supervisor Long.
I completely just echo what Supervisor Ramirez is stating, and hope that Keith is very excited to meet everybody, all of our stakeholders, cities, counties, our community members, because our airports are so precious, and just welcome him very much to the team, and can't wait to meet him in person. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And Ms. Frola.
I'd like to thank Mr. Powers for making this announcement. I would like to thank Mr. Nafee for holding the fort down. And I'd like to thank Mr. Hodson and Mr. Fussell for doing the job for the Airport Authority. Thank you both very much.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Councilman.
Mr. Hodson. Michael, you have your hand up and you're muted. Do you have something?
Unmute, sorry. That's better. Sorry, technology is not my forte. So I'd just like to thank everybody for being involved in this process. It was an education that I really enjoyed. Great process, exceeded expectations, which was good. My only concern about Keith is that according to the newspaper, he's going to remain as a resident in Northern California, be down here on a part-time basis, shall we say. And I was hoping to have him here as a stakeholder, a community participant, full-time as opposed to part-time. So that's my only comment.
Thank you.
Chair Thomas, if I may speak to that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Hodson, for raising that. I'm happy to speak to that. In my discussions with Mr. Freitas, he did raise that there's some family health issues that are important to him. And, we're a family first county. That's our philosophy. People need to take care of their family first. And we want to support him in that. But I can assure you, that Mr. Freitas is eager to be an present and engaged participant and leader here. And he will be here the majority of the time. So yeah, somebody mentioned about his excitement. He is very excited about coming to this airport. He's really excited about working with the staff, with this authority, with this community. He just sees the great possibilities here. So we look forward to his arrival.
Thank you. Anyone else with any comments? And just, I have a strong suspicion that Keith, you're watching this. So if you are, we welcome you and looking forward to meeting you in person. Thanks. All right, very well. Can we then, Mr. Maffey, go back to the agenda and item 6B?
6B, yep. Thank you. Okay, this item is for the adoption of resolution authorizing remote teleconference meetings of the Aviation Advisory Commission for a 30-day period. And the recommendation is to adopt the resolution, Exhibit 1, authorizing remote teleconference meetings of the aviation. This should be for the airport authorities separately for a 30-day period pursuant to the government code section 54953 subdivision E of the Ralph M. Brown Act. And the resolution itself is provided in your packets on page 6B3, or if you're looking at the electronic version of the packet material, it's on page 19. And so very briefly, this is a Assembly Bill 361, which allows for legislative bodies to remain within. Thank you. Remain in compliance with the Brown Act, and so it has a few contingencies or conditions. So one of them is that there needs to be a state of emergency in effect, which the governor did issue in March 2020. And then state and local officials need to continue to impose or recommend measures to promote social distancing. And our Ventura County Health Officer, Dr. Robert Levin, issued guidance in that category on September 21st, 2021. There's going to be a couple of times, assuming everybody, assuming our bodies agree to meet virtually into the future, where we'll need to bridge this 30-day gap with a special meeting because we don't always meet within a 30-day period. So tonight we'll have the ability to cover the following meeting on November 1st. But I believe the December meeting may be something that requires a special meeting to be held virtually in order to just simply vote on whether the following meeting should be virtual. If that occurs, then we'll be in compliance with the Brown Act. So recommendation now is to pass this item and for the chairs to sign the resolutions that are in your packet.
And I have one minor question, given the fact that tonight I'm the chair versus the Supervisor Long. Do you want me to sign it, or will we have Supervisor Long sign it when she gets back?
I think this isn't a time dependent kind of thing, so there's plenty of time for Supervisor Long to be the person who signs. But if it's her recommendation that she delegate that, then there's time for that.
Well, I motion to approve. This is
There you go.
Supervisor Long. Sorry.
I'll second it. Ramirez here.
Any discussion on the Camarillo, from the Camarillo side? The Oxnard will have the identical motion, so we don't need to bring in Oxnard on this one. Any comments? I did take the note that you'd already mentioned that will be easy for the 1 November, but we'll be outside the window 1 November to take care of December. So we will have to do something there. All right, can I have a roll call, please, Anna?
Supervisor Long,
Yes.
Supervisor Ramirez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Molche,
Yes.
Councilmember Santangelo,
Yes.
Chair Thomas.
Yes,
That motion passes unanimously.
and Mr. Calhoun, do you want to run the Oxnard section of it?
Sure, thank you very much, Dave. Well, you folks heard the rundown. I'd like to call for any conversation or comments from my panel members at this time. Bert, you've got to have something to say.
I'd make the motion to approve.
Okay,
Long will second.
I'm sorry, who is that?
Supervisor Long will
Oh, Long.
second.
Very
Hi.
good, super. Hey there. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
We need a roll call.
Well, we'll get that. I like to hear everybody say yay.
Yes.
And all those opposed? Okay, now we'd like the roll call, please.
Okay, Supervisor Long,
Yes, and I apologize, but I have to go. Have a good evening and thank you.
thank you.
Thanks.
Vice Chair Ramirez,
Yeah.
Councilmember Perrello,
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Chair Calhoun.
Yes,
That motion passes unanimously.
thank you.
Okay, I think that finishes up the new business, so we'll be director's report, item 7.
Okay, I'll be brief and gentle. Hey, we got a new director coming, so that's good. I had somebody very important that covered that for me, so we'll save breath there. The Oxnard runway 725 reconstruction is progressing very well. All the paving is done, so that it began on September 20th, and the paving for the runway is done. They're working on the transitions to the taxiway connectors. And we're still on track to open on November 5th. The last day of construction is scheduled for November 4th, and that will be the day the FAA flight checks it. And the grooving is going to happen at some point in the future beyond that. And that will not require full daytime closures. That will more than likely be a nighttime closure and done after sunset. So don't expect any major disruptions from that. But if you were intending to fly late, it might be an interruption for some. And we're looking forward to taxiway reconstruction in 2022. And again, phasing will be important there to minimize any disruption, but no airport closures would be necessary for that.
Okay, can I, just a quick question, is the grooving requirement a function of hardening or curing of the surface? Is that why they have to wait to do the grooving?
Yeah, the recommendation, Bill, is to have it set up for 30 days. You can shorten that a little bit in certain climates, and maybe this is one of the climates we can do that in, but we're taking the conservative approach of looking at a 30-day wait.
And then the paint has to be applied after they do the grooving.
Yeah, we'll have temporary markings going on so that we can open it. And then the grooving process will groove through that paint, and then a second coat will be applied of all the markings.
Okay, thank you.
All right, in other news, Vice Chair Thomas would want me to say this, that the Colorado Wings Association was named by the West Ventura Business Alliance as the Service Organization of the Year. So this is a huge honor, and the Department of Airport staff, we're all high-fiving over here about this. Love to see these kinds of great news stories about our airports. And the Camarillo Wings Association is going to be in a position of giving an enormous amount of cash back to the communities, to the nonprofits that support it. So we're thrilled about that, and other comments might come at you from that part of the agenda, but we wanted to say it here. In terms of community outreach, which we've now heard, and is no surprise that it's going to be a major strength for our incoming director, and a strength for me too. So it's something that my heart beats for in master planning and community outreach and those kinds of things. I haven't wanted to get very far ahead of the incoming director, but we should expect to see things really ramping up in that category. But I did have the opportunity to say hi to the Channel Islands Neighborhood Council at their latest meeting, and provide them some slides and a viewpoint about what makes our airport special, and why the airports are worth supporting, and the kinds of things that we do to reduce our footprint on the communities that are closest to the airport. So it was, I think, well received, but there are some FAA ways to help. So I've been in touch with Fabiola Garcia of the FAA, who's a special advisor to the associate administrator for the region. She is going to be coming alongside us as we look at the different ways that traffic patterns can be changed. And there's a specific process. There's an FAA way to do these things, as it would be no surprise. It's their jurisdiction once airplanes leave the ground. So we want to do it their way, and work to that end. So there may be periods where it doesn't look like much is happening, and I know that can be frustrating to our neighbors. But there is a way to do it, and we're going to be engaging with the FAA in that effort. We're also going to be working out our website resources for pilot education, flight school education, working directly with flight schools. So that's going to happen in time. And I just mentioned that it's a focus for the new director. I also wanted to mention that the Camarillo Joint Powers Agreement, or JPA, the 1976 agreement, the county has put together a series of questions, as we had agreed to do, because we had a joint meeting, a Zoom call with Catherine Cason and her staff at the airport's district office in Los Angeles a couple of months ago. And we agreed to jointly craft a series of questions about the JPA that we would like to have a common understanding of. And we provided those questions to the city a little bit ago. It's been several weeks, but we assume that the next portion of that effort will be that the city comments on our questions and contributes to them, and then they will jointly go off to FAA for their input. So, and the point being is that we want to make sure that whatever we do with this JPA, amend it or not, it still affords us the opportunity to meet our requirements under the deed restrictions that came along with the property that is now known as Camarillo Airport, well, once known as Oxnard Air Force Base, but also for all of the requirements that go along with the grant assurances for all the grants that we've taken along the way. So both of those are very serious things that we take to be of great concern as we look at the county's duty to administer the airport in the future. So without really any agenda, we're just looking to make sure that we're doing it right, and I look forward to having those answers and a common understanding with the city. So those are the items that I wanted to bring to you, and if there's any questions or comments or things like that. I also did want to recognize all of the authority members who helped on the selection panel for the incoming director, and there's a generous amount of time and effort, and we greatly appreciate that. And that also extends to the county executive office and all of their staff and everything that they did to help us get quickly through that process, get us on the right path with a new director, and we couldn't be more thrilled at the choice. So there you go. That's my director's report.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Who was that? Is that Walter? Yeah.
Yes, Calhoun. If I just for a moment, please, I'd like to jump back to the runway opening. There's been some discussion among the users and some public officials, including Dave for one, about an informal grand opening, let's say, or inauguration of the new runway. It's a pretty big event. It's a big slug of money. We know we'll be proud of it. So along that vein, I thought we could get together a small group of pilots and local airplanes to actually meet at certain very quickly and do a little quick ribbon cutting ceremony, for instance, but not necessarily, and then have the airplanes taxi in at one time down the runway for the full length. The pilots are excited about it. I think it would be a nice testament to all the work and all the efforts have been put in by not only the contractor, but the county personnel who've done a really exemplary job of getting this thing done. So I'm just tossing that out there. You'll be hearing more about it, or the people that are interested will be, and we'd like to see that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. That's very good. Mr. Perla?
Yes, I think Walter's idea is an excellent idea. This is too big of a deal not to take advantage of the opportunity to make some historical documentation of what, happened and the positive spin back. The only other comment that I have, I want to thank Mr. Nasty. I was able to attend that Channel Islands Neighborhood Council meeting. He did an excellent job, and there was a lot of positive feedback that I got. I'm grateful that we had staff that was willing to do that and meet with the residents that had concerns on an invite. Thank you, Mr. Nasty.
Very good. Can I have the agenda? Thank you, John. As far as reports, does anybody have any questions? I got a couple of questions on the reports, and I promise I won't take too long, but does anybody else have any questions on any of the reports that were in the packet? So I have two. I've whittled it down to two, Dave. One of them is on electronic page 65 on 8A on the hard copy is your hangar listing, and in the hangar listing it shows 160 of the county hangars available, 160 occupied, and I just would like to check and see if that means that all of the new hangars are now occupied or committed to be occupied. And since I know that there is a fair number of folks that have, in at least my area, that have moved out of their hangars, are those hangars planned on being rehabbed and then reissued? And is there a plan? I don't need to know what the plan is as long as there's a plan.
I could let myself off the hook by saying yes and just stop. But to your point about the new hangars, they are full. We leased them all. They're very, very popular, as you might expect. And in terms of the vacancies that opened up, well, let me put it this way: at Oxnard, you can walk up and get one. So that's pretty well, depending on how big your plane is. But assuming you have a typical Cessna 172, you can come up and get a hangar right now. And at Camarillo, I believe there's beginning to be a tiny wait list form. In terms of the turnover of the hangars, it's a case by case. Some of them really shouldn't go out before having some fairly major rehab, and more than just a little bit of elbow grease, where there's some issues. And these are temporary buildings, really. I mean, they're not even buildings; they're just trailer kinds of things, and they weren't meant to last decades and decades. So that's going to be a challenge, I think, for staff over the coming decade and multiple decades as to how we transition from those as our principal storage units. But we'll flip the ones that are flippable and get people in them. So we're not in the way of that. We have no other grand plan that's in place now to unplug bulk numbers of them and do something different. So
Great. And then John, if you could go to page 66, which is 8B on your paper copy. Is that doable?
Stand by, I'm looking.
Okay.
8B.
8B is page 66 on the electronic.
it's the map.
Roger. I'm there.
And there's been a format change, so I just wanted to point it out to the folks who may not have gotten all the way that far, and after reading two sets of assembly build, you may have gone brain dead before you got there. And Mr. Perello, while we're searching for it, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm hoping they can, I'm looking at the hard copy here. I'm hoping they can put it on the screen for somebody watching it. We'll see. And I really appreciate you bringing up the questions you did, Mr. Chair Thomas. Thank you.
Okay.
Do you want it on the screen, Bill?
Yes, could you bring it up on the screen?
All right, that's
I
gonna
think-
take me a couple minutes, so give me just a second.
Okay. Well, what I want to do, first of all, the format shows a map of Oxnard and Camarillo airports with where the noise complaints in particular were coming from. And it has a link up with the new noise complaint phone line, and which I think is a very beneficial item. And it also shows you frequency. What it doesn't do, and maybe we can figure out, is sort of collate the time of day and the weather conditions, because one of the things that we found out is when the marine layer moves in, the noise differential between that and a clear day is significant, and you'll see many times a spike in noise complaints when there's a heavy marine layer because it traps the noise. And then I wanted to do a little gloating only because the weekend of the air show had an average or less than average noise complaints, which the reason probably is because they called Councilman Santangelo and Moshe directly instead of the call line. But I did want to remind everybody that I did get most of the airport and most of the city calls that Kathy Talley could send to me on people complaining about the airport noise or the noise over the air show weekend. And I did personally answer every one of those. So, so this is the map, and I was a little bit humorous in the mapping for Oxnard. Just curious, is that all people who were complaining about helicopters? That's the part we don't know, because there's 15 complaints. Now they could have been, this is 1 August to 31 August. So it could have been in the first 3 days of the before the airport closure. But my guess is that those are all complaints on helicopters. And the new chart, Dave, doesn't have any hint on the type airplane. Just I'm not trying to make your work harder, but you may want to see if you can figure it, because you probably know. It's just listing it. And then the clustering in Camarillo looks like it's all people on the approach, and maybe an Old Town part of Camarillo, but I'm not exactly sure. I'll try to look at the scale on it, and I couldn't quite come up with that. So is there anybody, Mr. Peralta, did you have another question or
Yes,
comment?
and again, This is fabulous. You're asking this question. We're getting some explanation on this. What do the digits within the red circles mean?
Those are households. So a red one would be a single complaint for the month from that one location.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And then, John, you did great, but could you scroll down to the bottom of it? Because I did want to show the section. So this was the number of complaints per day, showing the spike. And like I said, I was quite pleasantly pleased at the number of or the lack of number of spikes for the weekend of the 21st, 22nd. So anyway, that was all I had on the reports. The other things are trivia, and I'll talk to you. I talked to you, Dave and John, offline on them because they're not worth keeping everybody. So if nobody else has any comments, then we'll go ahead back to the reports. My recommendation is receive and file for the reports. Any other comments on that? Correspondence, there was none. We're now number 10. Does anybody have any comments from either the Oxnard or the Camarillo Authority? Mr. Frollo.
On the Oxnard report, again, thank you for asking the questions you're asking, Mr. Chair. It helps. There was an individual that spoke at public comment. He's the chair of the Oxnard Shores Neighborhood Council named Walter Hagedorn. He asked if some specific item can be addressed before the airport authority, before the airport in Oxnard opens, which is going to open on the 5th. And I see our next meeting is on the 1st, which will be before the airport opens, and to avoid a special meeting to accommodate a concern of a resident, and he's a neighborhood chair involved with the Channel Islands group. If we could get whatever his concern specifically was on an item to at least be discussed, or openly discussed with the board. That's my only comment. Well-run meeting, Chair.
Mr. Naffy, can we put that on the agenda then for the meeting of the 9th? I mean, the meeting on the 1st. And I was not clear on, you have both the advisory commission and the authority meeting on the 1st. Are they going to be a joint meeting, or is there going to be a separation in time? Do you have a plan yet?
Yeah, it'll be similar to what we faced in September, only in reverse. The Monday was the holiday in September, and in November the holiday is on the 11th, which is the second Thursday. So we're putting them on the same night, simplifies all of the prep for that. And so that was identified when the meeting calendar was published back at the beginning of the calendar year. So
Yeah,
following through on that.
The only thing that wasn't described as timing is one at 5:30 and one at 7, or how do you, what's the plan, or is it a joint meeting?
5 and 6:30, but Anna might be able to verify that.
Okay. It wasn't listed that I saw. It doesn't mean that I may not have missed it.
Chair Thomas, on the meeting schedule that's included in the packet, it is item 8F. The meeting is identified to be November 1st at 5 p.m. for the airport authority.
Right, but it didn't say when the advisory commission was.
Their meeting time will stay the same at 7 p.m.
Okay, all right. That was the part I didn't know. I saw the 5 o'clock, and very good. Thank you. Any other authority comments? Or I do have one, and that is as a general comment on disinformation, and in particular disinformation on the Camarillo Airport. I cannot tell you how many times I've had people come up to me and ask me if Amazon is moving into Camarillo and if 737 freight aircraft or similar are planning on being there to take over Channel or CIA Air 7 and one of the 737s moving in to do freight. And I cannot tell you how disappointing it is when I hear that their questions are generated from people who should know better. And so I just really ask everyone, if you think you know something, but you don't know Mr. Naffy and his staff, there's a couple of us that are sort of airport rats. But I cannot tell you how many people who are living on the airport who tell me that they have heard that Amazon has got a taxiway going over to Del Norte to the new center over the fulfillment center. How come the Amazon trucks were parked across the CAF if the Amazon isn't really going to be there? And I'm getting this information way past when it should have all been put to sleep. So Dave, when your new director, when Keith comes in, you guys need to figure out how to get this kind of baloney put to bed so that I don't keep seeing pictures and stories in the Acorn and Ventura Star about the new Camazon airport. So that's the end of my rant on disinformation. Sorry. If I hear no other things, does anyone have a motion for adjournment?
Mr. Chair, I could just make one tiny comment on there. Just to the latest rumor that I heard was a job posting, and it looks like a fake job posting, something that was planted there, but it was for a 737 first officer, so a co-pilot, based in Oxnard, and it was for Atlas Air, which is a cargo company that often does contract flying for Amazon. So let me just be clear for anybody who's listening, or if this ever gets rebroadcast, that no such thing exists, no such ad is out there that's legitimate. Staff vetted that and was unable to validate that that's a real thing, but it did boil up. We did get a call on it, and I believe other calls were made. So the disinformation, it's active, and we do have to battle that. But every chance I get, I speak the truth, and a couple of things went out in newspapers over the last week, and hopefully the message is at least not being ignored. Thank you for your comments.
So if no one has any additional rants, which we'll happy to voice, I'm looking for a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, the authority for Oxnard and Camarillo is now adjourned.
Take care.
I had a
Bye-bye. Go Dodgers.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.
What's the score?